Hello and welcome to my quarterly summary for Zone 100. So let's start off with our first question, which is, who am I? My name is Léo Fortin. I'm a French Canadian from Northern Ontario, specifically Sudbury. I moved here to study human resources management as part of Ted Rogers School of Management at TMU. So I'm in the third year of that program now, graduating in 2025. I have a deep personal interest in entrepreneurship, which started all the way back in high school when I started a online marketing agency out of my basement during the pandemic. But that's blossomed now into university. So on the left hand of the screen, we have a picture of me alongside my team at Enactus TMU, which is a social entrepreneurship student group, where we compete against other chapters and showing off our environmental impact. But that's a little bit about me. Moving on to the big question of what's my project? So over the term, I worked on what I called the commercialization of academic research technology, which for the sake of us all, I compressed down to the acronym CART. So essentially, the birth of the project was working at the university for the Office of Research and Innovation, doing primary market research on how to inform the next steps in commercializing a cancer test and an AI algorithm, which is work that I did with my two now good friends that you can see in this middle picture. That was us presenting our findings to a panel of investors. So what I found was that actually there were many gaps in that process, that it often was not successful, and that really didn't sit well with me because it pained me to see all of the amazing innovations that researchers could make in labs not see their full potential reached out in the real world. So that was where I was at the start of the semester, and now at its end, I'm really at the convergence of this first diamond in design thinking. I'm reaching the end of my discovery phase, and I'm going to start defining more specifically a problem statement that I can tackle with a product or a service. And I'm really looking forward to that. So, how was the journey? Well, at times slow and grinding, but during others energizing and rewarding. So, particularly slow and grinding when I might have been stuck doing more secondary research than I probably should have, or trying to work out how to collaborate with Jason from Nodally about how to automate my outreach and validate emails for my specific use case, which is a little bit outside the scope of what they did. I'll get into that in a second. But there were definitely periods that felt like there was low to no traction, and that were discouraging. On the other hand, whenever I got out of a meeting that I thought went well, where one of my macro hypotheses about a problem in the space were validated, I felt like I could jump up and down with the amount of excitement. So those were definitely highs. In terms of encouragement from peers, we had a good support group with my partner Asvin, who was working on acting, which we met with biweekly. And so that was good. So two of the setbacks that I think gave me the best lessons throughout the term were as follows. The first was questionable compatibility with Nodally. So as I mentioned in the last slide, Jason and his startup were very focused on B2C and networking for individuals, whereas my use case was a little bit more B2B, or trying to network with stakeholders that I didn't have as much in common with. So there was a good amount of work, but unfortunately time lost on trying to find the middle ground between those two use cases. But it was a good lesson because it taught me that although it's good to be willing to experiment, you also need to be willing to accept the losses in time that you'll incur. The second one was spending off burnout, where I got really sick for a period of 2 weeks over midterms and had other commitments to take care of, including work. But the lesson learned was that sometimes you need to take care of your physical health in the short term so that your project can really survive in the long term. So overall, those were some of the setbacks, but again, there were always still very many highs, so it did resemble a roller coaster. So what did I learn from end users and stakeholders? Mainly, these were all macro or micro problems in the space of research commercialization that I actually had validated, which was great. And they all vary in complexity, but they're all generally accepted. So they include how success is measured in academia, which is largely around publications and citations, which don't necessarily correlate to commercial potential. The antiquated linear model of innovation, which is now moving over to an ecosystem model, but very clumsily. How technology transfer offices are incentivized, which is actually in identifying commercial potential, not commercializing it. There's a valley of death where it's very hard to validate deep tech technologies without funding, but hard to get the funding without the validation. There's the fact that researchers have too much to lose. These experienced researchers with sometimes faculty positions, they're tenured, they're principal investigators. It's too much to ask them to leave their positions and their careers in academia for a startup. There's also that they lack business knowledge. So although they're steeped in what they know technically, they are really out of their depth when it comes to business. And manufacturing is a big roadblock, which is the main pathway if you're looking at anything other than licensing, if you're looking at building a startup.
And here are the stakeholders that made it all happen. There are people from the ZON Incubator Learning Network, there are researchers at the university in engineering or chemistry. There's really a widespread, and I'm indebted to all of these people. In terms of what I learned about myself, there are two main things. The first is that I really love discussing and challenging ideas, particularly having my ideas challenged by people that have thought about them arguably, probably a lot more than I have due to their prolonged exposure to them, thinking about them, learning about them, and working around them. You can imagine if you've had a career in something for that long that you have a lot more to say than somebody who's new to it like me, but I really enjoyed that aspect of getting to learn and talk to those experts. But I also learned that I have a tendency to doubt my initial judgments, sometimes more than is good or that I should. It's good because it constitutes critical thinking, but it can be essentially too much or to the point where I sometimes think that just because something was my initial judgment that it's wrong when really it's good that it's challenged, but it could still be right. I advanced in my field in two main ways. The first of which was the majority of it, which was in knowledge. And this is due to the amount of time I spent doing secondary research, which again was probably more than I should have, but it did make me much more well rounded and it did prepare me better for those stakeholder conversations where I had a more familiarity with the topics and the questions in the field. But I also did gain connections that I didn't have before, people that are able to refer me further and to meet more and more people and to continue building my network in that snowball effect. My next steps are to follow through with my outreach. So I've basically sent out over 150 emails now in collaboration with Notally, and that's how I was able to get that scale and that quality at the same time because they're all personalized. I just need to follow through with converting all of those emails and whoever responds into actual conversations or any kind of insights, building onto the pile that I have already. So that's my main priority. And once that's done, I'll be able to move on to synthesizing my findings and more specifically, defining an addressable problem statement, something that I can actually try and tackle and that's feasible. Um, and also, but also at the same time, establishing my interest publicly. So that's making more statements through social media like LinkedIn about what I've found, about what I think I can do, and just being more vocal. So if I could go back to my first day or to talk to somebody who's about to start theirs, I would say that they should really focus on that end user or beneficiary engagement as early as possible. And that was a consistent theme throughout my monthly reporting and something that I did continuously try to act on to the best of my ability with the stakeholder interviews I was able to have, despite still spending a lot of time working with Jason on scale with quality at the same time. Um, we're building around specific people enduring specific problems, most people in the course. And so it's really crucial that you involve those people as early as possible. And I think that can really make or break your project, but also your interest. It can keep that alive for you. Having a person at the heart of it makes it more relatable and I think is easier to be motivated by than sort of an abstract idea or problem you want to build around. And last but not least, a lot of the course value came from JP getting to get his ideas every other week, getting him to weigh in, also collaborating with fellow students like Jason, like Asvin that I mentioned. Now that we're out of it, really having that sense of progress. And takeaways are to continue to look for opportunities to experiment and to act on your passion. Get out there and do it, and there's no substitute for that. So this was my quarterly summary. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.